Hey there guys, I hope you're all doing very well. Welcome back to another video. And finally Nintendo revealed the full details of the Switch 2. Now this was following Nintendo's Direct conference where they fully revealed the Switch 2, the games and its features. Now obviously a few months ago you may remember Nintendo did reveal the Switch 2, but they didn't reveal any details behind it such as the features, the performance and the games that will be supported on it. Now, we knew partial details of the Switch 2, such as the new Joy-Cons, it's backwards compatible, but some of the feature sets were still unknown, and people were kind of speculating what the features of the Switch 2 really were. But now Nintendo revealed the full details of the Switch 2 through its Nintendo Direct conference, all the games and everything surrounding it. And I just want to give my reaction to what I think about the Switch 2. Now, I want to really give my full takes of what I think about the Nintendo Switch 2 being fully revealed at the Nintendo Direct conference. Speaking about its features as well as also what I think of the Direct conference with the games, etc. Now, I'm going to give a short summary. I personally think a lot of what I saw was very positive. I think definitely the Switch 2 is a true successor to the Nintendo Switch, and so much of the new features that were showcased in this event has me convinced that this is truly a new console for Nintendo. And I think for a lot of the games that they showed and also the features had me convinced that I really do feel like this is potentially worth the upgrade over the Switch. Now, I'm not so sure how much units Nintendo is going to sell and also how potentially pre-orders are going to be affected by this by scalpers or etc. Because we all know that the shortage of hardware is a real issue. Like if you look at GPUs to console shortages, etc., there's a big problem. So I hope potentially Nintendo might fix the demand of how they will sell these consoles, considering knowing how popular the Nintendo Switch was, to really meet the demand of consumers that can get their hands on a Switch 2 and actually get it for the price that is reasonable for the consumer. So I want to kind of give my full reaction on the video and just talk about its features now.
With approximately double the pixels compared to Switch, you can enjoy games in greater detail on the 1080p screen. The screen supports up to 120 frames per second, allowing for smoother gameplay in supported titles. The LCD screen is more vivid and supports HDR, providing more contrast between light and dark areas of the images.
Now, what you're shown here are some of the improvements of the Switch 2 in handheld mode. Now, obviously, a lot of these features shown in the presentation are improvements of the regular Switch. So you can obviously tell that it's now full HD, which is 1080p versus 720p, and the display, it supports up to 120 Hz. Obviously, improvements of the regular Switch. Now, I think a lot of that is very promising. Now, I will arguably say my only real critique I will have about that is the fact that it uses an LCD display, which I'm a little bit puzzled by. Obviously, the recent Switch facelift, the Switch OLED, obviously had an OLED display. So I'm not so sure why they reverted back for the Switch 2 to go for an LCD display, considering that OLED displays are more superior in contrast ratios and quality versus LCD. But obviously, that's really one thing I will mention as a real criticism about it. Now, I think maybe if you have like an OLED TV that you will be docking this, then maybe that doesn't really matter. But I think certainly, which I will talk about later, the price of it, I would arguably say that they should have reverted to have an OLED display. They have obviously had that in the regular Switch, so I don't know why they didn't put it in for the Switch 2. Who knows if they might make an OLED display modeled? I don't know. But overall, you can arguably say it's a much better display than the regular Switch. And I think for having it support up to 120 Hz, I think certainly for a lot of games, or some games that will be supported, it will make the games much more smoother.
Each Joy-Con 2 controller can be used as a mouse opening up even more ways to play in compatible games. Both the left and right Joy-Con 2 support mouse controls, so you can also play certain games using 2 mice, like this.
Now, we weren't so sure that the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons would be used as a mouse. Obviously, a lot of it was coming through with a lot of speculations from the first reveal trailer. But now, from the Nintendo Direct full reveal trailer of the Switch 2, the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons can be used as a mouse. And it's also very cool that they showcase some of the games, like Metroid Prime 4, that you could use one of the Joy-Cons as a mouse and just use the other Joy-Con as a regular controller. And then, obviously, another game that they've revealed, which was called Dragon Drive, that you could use both the Joy-Cons as like a way of moving the wheelchair in a game like Dragon Drive. And also using the motion controls as well, such as like waving for a pass. I think that does seem that they are adding quite a lot of features with the Joy-Cons to make them more accessible. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see like how the use of these Joy-Cons will be supported, not just in games like what Nintendo have just showcased, but also potential third-party games as well, to see how they could utilize that feature.
Use the Nintendo Switch 2 dock to connect to your TV and enable up to 4K resolution for compatible games. HDR is also supported in TV mode.
And I think this is also another positive that now that you can now use the Nintendo Switch in dock form and support it up to 4K resolution. I think that's a very positive thing to see from the Nintendo Switch 2, that now you can enjoy the games on your display of choice up to 4K. Now, they do show this as if you are playing in 4K, you are limited to 60 frames per second. But to be honest, most of the games that you play in native 4K on consoles don't really achieve 120 frames per second or even 60 frames per second in some cases. So I'm not really surprised that they maybe limit this to 60 FPS. I was concerned that whether this was actually going to be a case that maybe the Switch 2 in docked form or the dock itself doesn't support HDMI 2.1. However, it was confirmed that it does. But also, it's interesting to see that you also do get some examples. Even if you are playing at 4K 60 frames per second, you do have game setting options as well. One of the things that Nintendo did showcase was examples such as Metroid Prime 4, but you can have game settings built into the game and play the game at certain settings, such as playing in quality mode or performance mode. And obviously in quality mode, you could play it up to 4K 60 frames per second. And in performance mode, it'll be 1080p, 120 frames per second. And they also detailed the performances of the game in handheld mode as well. So it does seem like that for like the Switch 2, like most other console games, like on Xbox Series X or PS5, that you can adjust game settings for adjusting the performance of the game, whether you want to play in performance mode or quality mode. So I think that's a very cool feature that the Switch 2 has now and most of its titles, and it just gives you more versatility in enjoying the games. So we don't have long until the Nintendo Switch 2 will come out. Now, in terms of the price of the Nintendo Switch 2, in the UK, it will retail for £395 and £429 if you get it with Mario Kart World. So obviously the Switch 2 is more expensive than the regular Switch. I don't think that really will come as a surprise, considering there are a lot of upgrades from the Switch to the Switch 2. Plus, on top of that, the pricing of hardware and game consoles these days, as well as gaming in general, it's getting more expensive. Also, one thing I was also pretty surprised is that there are going to be different pricings for physical versions and digital versions. So digital versions of the games like Mario Kart World, as well as a new Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive called Donkey Kong Bonanza, they will be priced differently. So Mario Kart World will be costing around £66.99 and Donkey Kong Bonanzas will be £58.99. So it's kind of, in that sort of ballpark of normal price of a next gen video game. And if you wanted a physical version of those games, you have to pay £8 more, which I don't know why. I mean, whether you own things physical or digital, I don't know why it would cost more to have them physical, but I don't know. I don't know the whole details around that. But obviously some of the upgrades are just some of the handful of upgrades that the Switch 2 has. Obviously the Switch 2 is bigger than the regular Switch, but also maintains the same thickness. Also, like with the Joy-Cons, there are, better buttons for the Joy-Cons, and they have been improved. Also, now the Joy-Cons will connect magnetically to the screen rather than you slide them in, so it's more sturdy. And also, there are also now a camera feature as well as game chat features in the Switch 2. So you can use a camera to use a video of yourself and, talk with your friends. And also use the camera to play some supported games as well. So there's a lot of upgrades of the Switch 2. Also, it's now got faster storage and more storage than the regular Switch. So I think the regular Switch had 32 gigabytes of storage. Now you get 256 gigabytes, and it has faster read and write speed. So I think all of those features that were mentioned in this video, as well as explaining now, kind of gives you a picture of essentially the upgrades that you're going to be getting with the Switch 2, and also the price hikes pretty much would, in some sense, justify that, even though it is very expensive. Now, there are a lot of games that are getting exclusives, like obviously Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong, the new Donkey Kong game, as well as the new Kirby game. They're coming exclusive on the Switch 2. Metroid Prime 4 is also going to be coming out on the regular Switch, but also will get a Switch 2 edition, which obviously will feature like some of the game settings. You could change the performance of the game, playing in quality or performance mode. I think they will also feature in other Switch 2 exclusives as well. But that kind of highlights the difference that some games will get Nintendo Switch 2 editions versus the regular Switch. And there are also going to be some third-party games coming out, like Elden Ring got announced that will coming out on the Nintendo Switch 2. Also games like Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hades 2. And also From Software are also doing a new game called Duskbloods, which will come exclusively on the Switch 2. So, lots of things have been announced at this Nintendo Direct conference, and I would say for a lot of what I've seen, I'm very optimistic and very excited for it. I think it will be very interesting to see now how Nintendo can, obviously being the gold standard of being the best family consoles for family, but also maybe could it be actually a very good gaming handheld to play third-party games? We have to see. Have to see how these games will perform. But there aren't any test benchmarks or anything as of yet, like how the Switch 2 will be compared with other handhelds, like PC handhelds, which have been kind of gaining dominance as well. And I think it will be very interesting to see when people will get their hands-on experience of the Switch 2. So yeah, very exciting video. Pretty much, I liked a lot of the things I saw from the Nintendo Direct conference. Loved the reveal of the Switch 2. And yeah, let me know what you think of the Nintendo Switch 2 when you saw the full details and everything being fully revealed and all its features. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, dislike if you want to dislike. Thank you for watching. And yeah, that's about it. See you later.